Hello everyone, welcome to a testing MotoGP video. It's something a little bit different. It's something that I'm not an expert in technical departments of MotoGP machines, but I think I've watched the sport for long enough and I've read enough books to understand, the slight differences between bikes and just to really understand what direction teams are going in for the future. So yeah, as you can see on screen, I have got the pictures of the 2021 and the 2022 spec Repsol Honda. Very different machines. People have likened the 2022 spec, the one in black as you can see, to a cross between a Yamaha, Aprilia and a Ducati. And the first thing you look at is the air intakes at the front. It's much bigger. It's like a hybrid mix between the Yamaha and the Ducati. So Honda are trying to push that direction. And then also the other eye-catching thing is the rear end. The exhaust is offset to the right, which is different for Honda. Usually their exhaust come through the middle, centrally, and also little things as well. I've noticed the winglets at the front are slightly more. I'd say they're just modified slightly to accommodate the new machine, the chassis, but they're pretty much the same winglets, the ones that we've seen introduced since Sachsenring 2021. I think Marquez and the rest of the Honda riders like that. But once you see this bike from the side, you get an appreciation for just how different it is in terms of Honda and their philosophy. It's much smaller, and I think that they don't struggle for engine capacity and speed. They don't struggle in that area, but they do lack an acceleration. So with the new aero, it's more tight together, and as you'll see here, it just looks different. It's an Aprilia rear end slightly with Ducati aero bits. It's really interesting from Honda. I'm quite excited to see how it's going to go if it's in a race trim, but we don't know what the riders' real feelings are because they're not really saying much to the media. But this is Honda's bike for 2022, and I'm convinced that they wouldn't be testing it so much at this Misano test and putting such emphasis on it, if they weren't going to race it. And here's more pictures of Paul Espargaro's machine as well. The rear end from the side does look a lot like the Aprilia, and yeah, it's just a nice machine. I think the aero's more similar to what they have in 2021 for the side, but the chassis is pretty much it's kind of what they've been running from what I see from pictures. It just looks like a rounded package of just taking the best bits from each other machine, pretty much, a MotoGP, and then putting it to use. Then we had Ducati. So this is the 2021 Ducati. It's got so much tricks and bits and bells and whistles on it. The obvious thing that we noticed from the test was the front end aero. So as you'll see from this photo here, it doesn't look as big when you see it on the first image. That air intake is huge, and when we get through the next two images, you'll really notice how skinny the front end is getting and how wider the air intake is. So Ducati obviously have all the aero, and they just they keep adding bits onto it. But I think this is they don't really need to change it that much. They've got the machine that is the best. It started the aerodynamic craze in MotoGP, so they're always innovating. And I think what we're seeing here, this image especially, look at the difference between the 2021 bike and this one. I think that they were quite positive, Ducati, about what they had tested. Michele Pirro obviously does all the testing for them, so it's getting towards the territory of F1 aerodynamics for how wide that air intake is. I can't really believe the size it is, but if it works for Ducati, it'll catch on the rest of the grid, and that's why I think Honda have moved away from the longer but thinner air intake and going for a more wider one but shorter. Yeah, look how short the Ducati looks on the front end. It almost looks like a Panigale when you see the aero on it. It's just it's interesting to see what they've done with the bubble and stuff, but the aero on the side is pretty much the same. And yeah, it's quite interesting to see that Honda and Ducati are making such inroads when Yamaha didn't really test anything. We know Suzuki tested a 2022 chassis, but it looked the same, but Mir was quite happy with it. So yeah, let me know what you think of 2022 and the prospect of Honda trying a completely different philosophy to what they're usually used to doing, going away from their previous model of bike and then moving on to a new one. It's going to be interesting. So make sure to subscribe to Christ MotoGP for more content, and I will see you in the next video.